what you had and what you have and what you can still have. So,
That's so true. And that's the difference between happiness and joy, right?
mhm.
'Cause, actually, happiness is an old English-based word which meant luck. So if you're happy, you're lucky. If you're not happy, you're unlucky. So you're unhappy. And joy is independent of circumstances. It's this river that runs beneath all circumstances and situations. And at any point, if we just stop and and let ourselves fall down into that river, it's there, but it's only there in the present tense, right?
Mm.
You don't get the river of joy today or next week or for the next thing that you encounter or for the next problem. You get it now. And it doesn't mean things change and all goes away and all the hurt and harm are suddenly evaporated. No. It means that underneath all of this is a constant sense of being able to just sense joy. It's an interesting thing. The Navy SEALs, there was a huge project done with the Navy SEALs in the UK. He's allowed to actually change, especially if you're on death row. But these men are precious to me. When my dad died, I got a card. I got it right here, and it had a dozen of the guys write me encouragements, and it was from death row, and that's anyway.
Well, Paul, as a publisher and as a believer, it would be my pleasure if there's anything my service could do to share hope and
Could be a woman who's been recently trafficked or whatever. It's just who's the person in front of me. A lot of times it's my grandchild. So it's being present to the grandchild
Mhm.
and to the conversations that are going on. And sometimes it means I need to slip away. And that seizure disorder is it has some built-in mm, elements that require me to step away.
All right, welcome to the Dr. Smiley Show. Man, it's been a while, Paul. We've had, gosh, 5 years, and a wonderful gentleman, Paul Strupel, changed my life when he says, I know exactly who you need to know for your smile movement. And then he gave me your number, and we texted back and forth for a while. And you were always on the move, always on the move. And then you graced us with not just an important show, but an important book, the biggest book I ever did, which was Dose of Hope, Dopamine, Oxytocin, Serotonin, Endorphins. And you caused me to be rather emotional about this when you sent it to me and you said this has never been published. So thank you, Paul, very much.
You are so welcome, and I am so honored. Every conversation is always a two-way street. So here we go.
Well, the idea about this book I'm creating is that I have a lot of people in my phone. I have a lot of people I've met, but there's some people that really lifted me. And I wanted to pick enough people that you could turn a page a day and have a year of joy. So I'm not sure what day, but I think May 11th kind of is a good day to put.
I think it's a pretty fantastic day myself. So
So, Kenny, if you're here, I'd like to just. My son happens to be home from school. Most of my shows are during the morning time, and he's at school. But he knows how important you are to me, Paul. So I just wanted to give him an introduction to what.
hey, Kenny,
Hello.
how are you?
I'm doing actually really good because
Uh-huh.
yesterday I had a campfire and it was a great experience.
Oh my goodness, out in the woods?
Actually in our backyard.
There you go, even better.
But he is a master at getting the marshmallow to be that beautiful auburn
Brown?
color. That yes,
Yeah, we'll
and
have to
those
have
are,
a contest because I'm good at that too.
well, they didn't have the big ones, did they? Back when we were growing up.
No,
I mean, these things are
no.
so big they're as big as a fist. And Kenny has written 14 books. I think he's written potentially 10 since you and I first met. And
Wow.
I wanted to have one question that you might ask him, but or no advice. I'm sorry, not a question, advice. And then Kenny had a question for you. So can he ask his question first?
Yes, please.
All right.
I would like to ask, what inspired you to write The Shack?
I'm married to a woman named Kim, and she and I have been married for over 45 years, almost 46. And she kept saying, someday, as a gift for our kids, would you just write something that puts in one place how you think, because you think outside the box?
Hmm.
And And I never felt healthy enough to do it until the year I turned 50. I had a whole bunch of hard places in my history, really difficult things. And it took a long time to get my feet back under myself. And the year I turned 50, I finally realized that I was like one of the healthiest people that I knew, and I'd done a lot of work. And so I felt, all right, I think I can write a story for my kids. And I I wanted to write that story hoping to save them a lot of years, that they could learn from some of my mistakes and some of my history and some of the ways that I think now, and maybe it'll save them a bunch of time. And they're way ahead of where I was when I was their age, and so it's a good thing. But that's why I wrote. I didn't write to become a published author. I wasn't a published author. I was working three jobs. I was working in a hot food line, food processing, cleaning toilets, shipping out soldering tips, working for a web conferencing company. And so I did this just for my kids and to have a Christmas present. I actually made the book on a photocopier at Office Depot, made 15 copies. And because they had a price break, I could get 15 copies for the same price as normally you could get eight. And I wanted eight, but I could get 15. So I made 15. And uh, I gave the kids a copy, and Kim and I kept a copy. It was my only Christmas present that year because I was working three jobs because of a lot of other things. And the extras I gave to my friends. And I went back to work. The 15 copies did everything I ever wanted it to do. And so that's where it all started.
So the seven extra copies were the gap that made the difference in it getting out in the world more, probably, right?
Yes, they were. When my friends got them, they started giving it to their friends. And we actually put a little collection together, made 15 more copies so that they could give it to their other friends. And then I started getting emails that I didn't know how to answer. And that's what started the chain reaction. So it was my friends.
So I didn't know what question he was going to ask. I do know a question he was going to ask. And so it was about your book becoming a movie. Did you ever one anticipate that, or how did that become a possibility?
I never even anticipated that my book would be anything more than 15 copies. So
Mhm.
here's a thing. You know what expectations are
Mhm.
when you like for example, if Christmas is coming and you expect that you're going to get this one present that you really want, and when a child does that, when they have an expectation, like it's almost a demand, they none of the other gifts will mean anything to them, and they'll be very upset and disappointed if they don't get what they thought they were going to get. That's expectations are just disappointments waiting to happen. And when I wrote The Shack, I had no expectations, and I still don't. When you learn to live without expectations, suddenly everything becomes a gift. And that's really important. Um, so no, I didn't expect anything. It still makes me laugh every day. And my kids and I and Kim, we talk about how crazy this all is, and our motto is, "Who would have thought?"
Right.
Like, who would have thought? And so no, it was a surprise. And every way that they involved me, whether it was being on the set or looking at the script or talking about which actors or doing promotional stuff, it was all a gift. And and because of my relationship with Jesus, at one point it became important for me just to give it all away. So I gave the movie away. I didn't have any creative control. I didn't have any rights. I received no money from it. And it was the right thing. It was the right thing for me to do at that point. Um, and then everything was a gift. Everything, because I had no expectations. People would say, "What if they make a really crappy movie?" Which they didn't. Um, and I would say, if the purposes of love are better served by a really crappy movie, I want to be fully in. I'm in. And so I like that. So no expectations.
Well, you've embarked a lot of wisdom to my son and even to myself and to our guests listening. And this will turn into a book with a lot of publicity going to having that QR code be a very well scanned QR code. But I wanted to ask, is there any advice you'd like to give a young man or a youngin? Go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. If you can learn to do this one thing, it will save you years and a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, and that is stop future tripping. I mean, that means don't create imaginations in your mind that actually don't exist. Stay present to the world that is right here, right now, in front of you.
Hmm.
Don't be worried about stuff that doesn't exist. And uh, and we're designed to live in the present tense. So in this moment, right now, in my conversation with you, you are the most important person in the whole world to me because I'm here. I'm present to you. You're present to me. This is the real world. And it's taken me a long, long, long time to break the habit of future tripping, being somewhere that is not this moment. And that's where a lot of fear comes from because fear doesn't let you stay present. That pushes you somewhere and it pushes you into a place where you think you're alone and you get disempowered. That is, you lose your ability to make good choices. So if you can learn as a young person how to be present. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't imagine and things like that, but when imagination is linked to love, it produces creativity, fun, adventure, childlikeness, which all adults need, and all that. But if you connect imagination to fear, it produces imaginations of trauma, things going wrong. If you listen to the news and let it start pushing you into imaginations that don't exist, you'll start to become afraid for the world, for yourself, for everybody, and you'll move out of being present to the real world that is actually in front of you.
Beautiful. You know, we have something in common, and I know with your mind and heart, you'd say, yeah, all three children of God. We're all children of God,
Yep.
and that would be true. But we have something else that's uniquely connected to all three of us. You were at a very challenging period of your life at age 50, and you took it upon yourself to write this book, and it was an important work. My mom had Alzheimer's, and on her deathbed, I promised after 25 years of saying I'd do a book, I finally did one.
Yeah.
And my son looked at his daddy, who lost absolutely everything during the pandemic. I mean, everything, 99%. And I said to my son, "You're my only client right now." He goes, well, what does that mean? I said, "Well, if you want to be an author, today is the day." And he wrote his first joke book, and it led to 14 more books. So we all have that in common, Paul.
Yeah, we do. And like you started with, not only do I know that what's your son's name?
His name is Kenny.
Kenny. Not only do I know that the three of us are children of God, I firmly believe that there is nobody on the planet who is not. And that the beauty of love resides in every single human being, whether they know it or not. And a lot of times our hurt and our fears and all that interfere, but yeah, and then so yes, I also have a son who has written three books. I have a daughter who's written a children's book. I have
Wow.
grandchildren. I've got a lot of grandchildren, by the way, 17 living so far, and so it's a lot. But there's a lot of storytellers, and I think kids are by nature storytellers and writers or artists for sure, and dancers, and just art seems to be so natural until somebody tells them it doesn't look good or it doesn't compare with somebody, or and then they start not trusting their own heart, and that's a sad thing.
It is. And when you think about your message, though, of gratitude and love, it reawakens wonder, and it reawakens you being self-expressed and forgiving those who don't understand that you're just being human.
Yeah, yeah. Gratitude is one of the most, actually, if you talk to doctors and neurologists and people who are quite scientific, they will tell you that of anything that you can engage in, um, for your physical body and physical well-being, better than operations, better than drug protocols, it's gratitude. It has they've tracked it in
Yeah.
terms of
Oh, I
study.
believe it. Yeah.
Yep. And so like if you wake up in the morning and you can say, I am grateful for, and list 5 things. And when you go to sleep at night, say, I am grateful today for, because, and find 5 things, even in the middle of hard times. That will change your life and will change the way your body works. And so gratitude is really important. I don't do it for that reason. I do it because I'm grateful. I'm
Mm.
just grateful. I have so much to be thankful for, and I'm surrounded by, and have been, by the kids and by the grandkids and by this incredible creation. And yes, I'm grieved at times. People tell me their stories, and we all have losses, and we have losses in our family, and we have physical struggles. 4 years ago, epilepsy showed up in my life, probably because of when I was hit by a car when I was in my 20s. And but here it is, a challenge, a question, but nothing to be afraid of. I'm not afraid of it at all. But and I found that in the middle of it, there are some gifts, you know, and uh, and that's pretty cool. But I still pray that I get healed, just so you know.
Well, we will add those prayers to ours as well. Kenny, we're grateful for you, Paul, and I know Kenny wants to get to his homework. There's nothing more fun than doing homework before soccer.
What's your favorite subject?
It is math.
Good for you.
Yeah, he's
I've
quite a
got
mathematician. He finished at the top of his school.
nice, nice.
Math
I,
class.
well, our oldest boy has a 5-year PhD in statistics.
Oh
And
wow.
so he's a mathematician, like he is a scientist mathematician. And I think I know one of our 17 grandchildren who actually likes math. So
If I saw your son right now, I'd say 43.67% of all statistics are made up right on the spot.
he would laugh.
All right, Kenny, say goodbye
Okay.
and thank you.
So
Yeah.
nice to meet you, and real blessings on your continued work with creative things, even math. Yeah, or especially math.
Thank you. Thank you, Kenny.
Yeah.
So if every day is a sunny day, Paul, then we don't know what to appreciate about a sunny day. So I think that's also the weird design of God, is that when you have hardship and grief that you deal with, you can be awakened at what you had and what you have and what you can still have. So
That's so true. And that's the difference between happiness and joy, right?
mhm.
Uh, Actually, happiness is an old English-based word which meant luck. So if you're happy, you're lucky. If you're not happy, you're unlucky. So you're unhappy. And joy is independent of circumstances. It's this river that runs beneath all circumstances and situations. And at any point, if we just stop and and let ourselves fall down into that river, it's there, but it's only there in the present tense, right?
Mm.
You don't get the river of joy today or next week, or for the next thing that you encounter, or for the next problem. You get it now. And it doesn't mean things change and all goes away and all the hurt and harm are suddenly evaporated. No. It means that underneath all of this is a constant sense of being able to just sense joy. It's an interesting thing. The Navy SEALs, there was a huge project done with the Navy SEALs in the UK, 5 different universities, on resilience. They were trying to figure out what makes somebody resilient. And they had this long-term study about Navy SEALs, which, special forces people are amongst the most resilient in the world. And they found 5 different characteristics that came out, and and none of them they were trained for. It had all happened through the development of these individuals in their personal lives, and but they had to do with being able to change the way you think in a given moment when you're presented with new information. That's a hard thing for most people.
Yes.
We get stuck inside the ways that we've been told, the ways we've been indoctrinated, and religion is amongst the worst of the indoctrinators. And I'm a Jesus person, so um, And I'm a missionary kid, preacher's kid. So I came through that. And I have a great respect for the things that I got from my heritage that were really helpful and experiences that were really great. But there was a lot of things, and it was hard, when you're told that you're right and those people are wrong, then it's hard to change your paradigm. That was but the last of the five was when a Navy SEAL was presented with the fact that they were going to hit ultimate failure, that whatever they're dealing with was going to absolutely fail. They dropped into joy. That's the direction they went. They didn't drop into, fear, running with their hands up and freaking out. They dropped into joy. It was like a place of rest in the middle of the chaos that they were experiencing and confronting. The other thing that I thought, besides the five things, they found that during SEERS training, which is the heightened
Yes.
SEAL training, right? Um, uh, I can't remember what SEERS means now. Escape. Anyway, they would make you face your worst fear. So if you were afraid of closed spaces, they would put you in a box and put you down like 6 feet underground, and leave. And you had to face your greatest fears. And they found that the folks that faced their greatest fears had one thing in common, and that one thing was they knew they were not alone. If you know you're not alone, you can face anything, even your greatest fears. And a lot of us, we allow fear to put us into a place where we begin to believe that we're alone. And I think this is a factor that faith has a huge positive impact because we know we're not alone. But as religious people, uh, we've already segmented our lives into the spiritual stuff and the everyday stuff as if they're not in union or engaged. And so it's a beautiful thing to know you're not alone. I'm not alone, and nobody's alone. And we're made in the image of a God who's never been alone. So
Well, I have a couple things to say about that, Paul, and
um,
they're all complementary. But one, SEER is survival, escape, resistance, and evasion. SEER
thank
training.
you.
Uh,
Yep.
Number two is I've had the pleasure of meeting some people that went through that school and through other SEAL type schools, and even in the movies they show that when they're broke into the last piece and then they sing, that all of a sudden everyone sings with them and they rise in energy and they rise in
Come on.
resilience. And so that's a beautiful piece. I was thinking about a quote based on your happiness and luck, and I have to rethink when I say this. These are two quotes I just grab a lot of times. One is Mark Twain: "The harder I work, the luckier I get." So in other words,
Yeah.
the harder I work, the happier I get, right? And then one of my favorites that I've been just relying on so much from a standpoint of gratitude is Gandhi says, "Happiness is when what you think and what you say and what you do are in harmony." But it's joy. It's
Yes. Yeah. And a lot of people use the words interchangeably. So you have to kind of listen to whether they're speaking in terms of the lucky stuff or they're speaking in terms of the joy stuff, the real stuff. Yeah.
exactly. Um, do you know Barry Shore by any chance?
Only by name.
Okay, he's my mentor. He has a very big show, and it is called uh, the Joy of Living podcast. The joy.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to be connected to him, I'd be all too happy to connect you. But he's the one who handed me the card also, and I've done 300 books, believe it or not, because of a person handing a card over that
Wow.
it resonated so high with me that just like when you see the light and you're just at another level of energy. That's what that did for me. And then I wanted to say a special thank you to somebody who just is one of your biggest fans. Her name is Dr. Michelle Mraz, and she also has a very big show. And I think she's on a little bit of a hiatus because she's traveling a lot right now. But I just want to give her a shout out because she was so excited that you were going to be on the show today.
Oh, that's so sweet. Please give her a big hug when you have an opportunity.
I will. Apparently, we're going to Qatar to serve a lot of royalty and fun women that are global thinkers, global activists, and really moving the nurturing needle of how the world embraced each other. So I think
How fun is that? That is, those kinds of invitations. I mean, that's the thing that the shack gave to us. All my basic stuff, the grounding stuff was in place. The shack didn't give me and still doesn't give me an identity. I don't get an identity from the shack, from the books or
Mhm.
the movie or whatever. Identity, worth, value, significance, security, meaning, purpose, destiny, community, love. Shack didn't do that. I that was settled for me before I wrote it, and I think it had to be settled. Um, what the shack did was an invitation to walk on the holy ground of other people's stories.
Mm.
I believe every human being's a story. They are a story, and uh, and if we learn how to listen, we will be amazed. And so, that invitation to Cutter, and like all invitations that are in the present tense, that's amazing. That's beautiful. How cool is that? And you go like, I should walk barefoot, I think. And because that's so much holy ground all around us.
Where's one of the coolest places that you were invited to, or that you got to speak, or that you chose?
Oh, boy. I've been invited to some incredible places. I got invited. This is one of my favorites. There were like 6 or 7 nuns in Pittsburgh that contacted me and said, "We've saved up $267. Would you come spend a weekend with us?" And I went, "Absolutely." That paid for one leg of my
You're
flight,
right.
but it didn't matter. And it was just the invitation and the right thing to do. And I had a great time. Um, but I was I become friends with a bunch of guys on death row in Tennessee. And, uh, and we've been friends now for like 7 years, like true friends.
Hmm.
Because of my religious heritage, probably, I have some difficulty with words like ministry or mission or those kinds of things because they always smack to me of separation and superiority. And I'm just not about those things. And I'm sure that can be defined in terms that are much more about servanthood, like uh, like a Gandhi or a Mother Teresa. Definitely had a ministry, but it was the right kind where they were constantly washing feet, and they were servants. So, and in the most beautiful sense. And so, because of the shack, I had a friend who said one day, "Hey, there's this guy in death row that he's been absolutely changed by your book. And if I get a copy, would you sign it so I can take it in?" And I said, "No." I said, "Get me in and I'll go with you." And that's what happened. That's what started my relationship with Terry King, and now a whole bunch of guys, and got to know them really well. You'll love this. They built in their little wood shop. And Terry's been on death row for 43 years, Kevin Burns for 33 years, Akil for 33 years. I mean, uh, way above the national average in terms of there's been some problems with the drug protocols in Tennessee and stuff like that. But they built this table that's white. It has a symbol in the middle of it, and it sits outside their law library, and it's called the reconciliation table. And it's got the African symbol for reconciliation in the middle of the table. And the agreement on death row is that if the guys have a trouble with each other, have a problem with each other, they will meet at the reconciliation table and not leave until it's dealt with. Or if they have a problem that can't be dealt with just with the two of them, they'll bring in somebody like KB, who's by KB is an ordained minister, properly ordained. We think the only inmate ordained pastor of a death row church, and it's called the Church of Life. And it's stunning. And since I've been there, 4 inmates have been proven to be innocent, and I think the shortest period of time for any one of those was over 20 years. And so it's just like, oh, and right now they've reinstituted the active death penalty process, and some of my friends are on the calendar now, and it's just like our when it comes to justice, we have no mercy. It's retribution, and nobody's allowed to actually change, especially if you're on death row. But these men are precious to me. Just when my dad died, I got a card. I got it right here. And it had a dozen of the guys write me encouragements. And it was from death row. And that's anyway.
Well, Paul, as a publisher and as a believer, it would be my pleasure if there's anything my service could do to share hope and inspiration, and also um, acknowledgement that they're important.
Mm.
So, if you see anything outside this call and you want to have me step up, I would be all too happy to do that for those gentlemen.
Thank you so much. That's that's not only generous, that's amazing. Thank you. And I'll think about that for sure.
Yeah, and I remember when I met you, Paul. I was in Bend, Oregon, and I said, "Can I please have a coffee with you?" And you were so generous to say, "Yeah, I can meet you at whatever it was, 8 a.m." And I said, "Can you make it 7:30?" And you said, "Yeah, I can do that." And I only had 15 minutes because I had to head to the plane,
That's
and
right.
it was one of the worst situations because I had an hour drive to get from Bend to Portland just to see you. And I was like, of all the luck, but I got to see you, and you are just a remarkable energy and love. And I took your picture and I said, I know it's the longest shot of all, but if you would consider sharing your story of hope. And you contacted me about a week or two later and said I would be happy to do so. And I want to say that was one of the toughest times I was going through in my life. It was
Mm.
in the pandemic. I got an eviction notice, and
Mm.
I reached into my phone and I saw your name and I said, it's a long shot, but who brings more hope than Paul? And I contacted you and I sent you, and you're in this book, but you're not just in this book, you're in all six versions, and they're 800 pages each. And I just want to share this with you, Paul.
Right.
You're on page, you're on page 759, 759. And here is page 759. I found out Amazon would allow people to do 820 pages is where the binder stopped.
Ah.
and and it changed the script because I said, dose of hope is about dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins going off. And, we need hope right now. And I said, and Paul Young is part of this. And people are like, I want to be in the book and share about hope. So you really changed the acceleration. And because of that, you'll see a two here. And I was
Yeah.
only planning on doing one book, but 5 days before, I think it was 10 days before Christmas, we looked at it and we said, we're way over. We only have 820 pages. We have 1,100 pages. No, it's 1,200. I said, we're either going backwards or we're going forward. I said, we got to find 400 more pages. So we did, and we came up with two 800-page blocks, and they are completely unique stories. This was God. This is completely God.
Absolutely. I mean, and talk about a world that needs hope. And I think part of it is not that the world's actually gotten worse. It's just that we know about things so much quicker, and we're inundated by messages of despair and trauma and tragedy, and because it sells, it's commercial, and so what you're doing is so profoundly important. It creates constant ripples, and one day you'll get to see where those ripples went.
Well, to the gentlemen that are on death row, they can be love because they have connected themselves to hope.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like KB said, some of the guys here are just waiting to die.
Mm-hmm.
And KB starts every day. And he's got a book out called Today, the Best Day of My Life.
Oh my
And
goodness.
oh, it's so good. And we all know he's innocent, right? He's one of those guys, and he's been there for 33 years. I was going to see if I can quickly grab his book. Here it is. It's called Today, the Best Day of My Life. And he's been on death row for 33 years. But it has his story in it, and it has why. And it's all centered on his faith. And because people say all the time, those guys are just being religious oriented in order to get a break. What kind of break? I mean,
Yeah.
where are they going to go exactly? And no, these guys are for real. And it's just stunning.
Yeah, I will say that, two of my favorite movies, even though there's plenty of movies about people that were innocent that were put away, but Shawshank Redemption comes
I
to
was going to say, and Green Mile, but
Green
uh,
Mile, and also Hurricane.
yeah,
I mean, Bob Dylan, of all people, if he hadn't come up with that song, it wouldn't have made a movement happen. It's just crazy how one person can see an injustice and say, this is not right, but I have the power to show the world that it's unjust.
yeah.
I want to show you two things, and then I want to go back to our conversation.
Okay.
One I want to show you is, and thank you for being so present and sharing something with my son. This is my son's book called my first 10 years. And the reason I'm showing this to you, Paul, is first of all, I'm going to send it to you. But
Okay.
his quote that he came up with was this: Tomorrow,
Ah,
tomorrow's my favorite day because I get to celebrate another day I'm alive. Isn't that something? You just said that, and I just had to. The other one I want to show you is I've done almost 300 or a little over 300 books that are Keep Smiling books, and your chapter in Dose of Hope is repurposed into the Legacy Edition, which is honoring people that write a book, and the book becomes the reason that smiles happen in the world. So I just want to show you that very quickly. These are things I've been just so excited to show you. So this is your page. This is your book. Uh,
ah,
and this is a book that shares obviously your chapter. And anyone that's watching this, if you'd like Paul's book, this is what it looks like in the front. It shows all kinds of people who have shown their book. There's the shack right there. And I just want to show you this very, very quickly. I'll send you a copy of it because I don't know if you have this particular one, but
oh, I
these
don't.
these are all people that have their book on the side, and we're adding QR codes so people can actually grab the books. But just want to show you there's some pretty cool people in here, and
Very.
you were the one who ignited that a legacy edition was an opportunity for me to show how books actually create smiles. You're not just people.
Golly, I'm so honored. You know, it's who would have thought? You know, if anybody knows the Old Testament, they'll get this, and that is, I say, the shack is proof that God can still speak through Balaam's ass. It's a story about a prophet who's going to curse a whole group of people, and his donkey keeps talking to him, and so anyway, it's just a play on words.
What are one of your favorite stories from the Bible that you share when you speak?
John, I think it's 9. The numbers are a little difficult for me because of the seizure disorder, but it's either 8 or 9, and it's the man born blind. And I like it for a number of different reasons. One is you see the movement of one individual person through the course of a series of events in one day, just in one day. And from a guy who is an outcast, he is disinherited, he's blind, he was born blind. And there's all these theological issues around him being born blind, whether he did something wrong and
Right.
maybe in a prior age or his parents did something wrong. And the disciples are asking Jesus about it, and Jesus says it's not about that at all. It's so that today you will see the goodness of God portrayed in him, and the miracle there is unusual, and that is that the way the language is and the way the miracle happens. The early church agrees with this, and that is that he didn't have any eyeballs. He had only sunken sockets,
Mm,
that he had no eyes. And so when Jesus takes some dirt, because we're made out of the dust of the earth,
right.
and he spits on it and he makes clay and he puts it into that space. When he washes it off, he has eyes that can actually see. And that's why everybody was freaking out. And that's why the parents go like, yeah, that's our son. I don't know what he did, and others are like, well, he looks like him, but they couldn't quite connect because he looks completely different than he had because of his eyes. And it starts through this whole day of being questioned by the religious authorities, and he ends up moving, and he ends up moving and moving in terms of his own faith response until at the end of the day, he's wide open to what love will be, even though they've now kicked him out. But he was kicked out at the beginning of the story anyway. And
Right.
it's just this absolutely fantastic story that's in the New Testament, Gospel of John.
Gospel of John. So you know how you said certain things and they've elicited new commentary or a new conversation. You said the word seizure, and seizure is not the exact word, but it is one of the most important words that's driving right now. It's called seize, and a new client of mine is having carpe diem, seize the day with a smile, and
Uh-huh.
carpe diem
That's
has
fantastic.
kind of a dominating.
Military.
Exactly. But
Yep.
she does it with love and kindness. So I said, you're more about seizing the day. And you just brought up the word seizure. So would you mind sharing, how you seize a day, and then anything you'd like to share about challenges and what you're doing to create a better world?
Ah, so second part of the question first, and that is, I don't worry about changing the world. it's just not on my bucket list. It's not on my calendar. It's not on my, I don't care about changing the world. What I care about is being present in the moment to the person, the event, the situation that is in front of me. I have this little phrase that I think I got from the Holy Spirit, and that is, you know, do the next right thing and trust the ripples. Trust the ripples is what it is. And trusting the ripples means you don't make decisions based on outcomes. You make them in response to that which is in front of you.
Mm.
And so uh, I think a lot of people, they get a vision or a plan or a purpose. And
Right.
frankly, I don't want a purpose-driven life. I want a life that is indwelt and responsive to the indwelling love who is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And so I don't, none of those things are of concern with me. Um, so how I seize the day, there's no answer to that question because again, it's about, all right, what is in front of me? Is it someone who's dying? Is it someone who is hurt? Like, is it when one of our grandkids died at 30 weeks old in utero? How do you seize the day? And and what does that even mean? Well, it goes back to the same thing that I started with, and that is you learn to be responsive in that moment to that which is in front of you. That's how you do it. You be present to the world that is real and not to imaginary ones. And I'm not talking about creativity. I'm not talking about, well, let's have a plan. Yeah, let's have a plan, but hold it loosely. You know, all kinds of stuff in any given day can take you totally sideways. And so it's seizing the day for me is about me being fully present to the world that is actually in front of me and then trusting the ripples. That's that's all because it's the day that brings things to me.
Right.
And yeah.
Well, I would like to understand this a little better. So, pardon me if I'm not getting
No,
it.
no. It's okay.
So, you're not trying to seize the day because that would be potentially a futile energy going into it, but instead you're being love, and the love is causing your day to actually have the highest impact. Is that? I mean,
Yeah,
I know it's present. I know it's present.
and you're not even trying to.
Right. You're not trying. Exactly. You're being.
And this means you've done some work in terms of who you are and in terms of your identity. This is not a way to become someone. This is a way to express who you are.
Mhm.
And so I, there's a lot of things that I don't, people ask me, do you have spiritual disciplines? And I'm like, um, yeah, I have friends who do, and if they want to include me, I'd love it. I'll go walk a maze or, spend time in prayer or, go on a hike or whatever. Um, and but as far as a routine, well, right now I get up and early and I do a little bit of exercise and then I try to we have a sauna at our place and so I try to go in there for 20 minutes and then I take a shower. But that can be as interrupted as anything else. So yeah, I am not trying to do anything according to some outcome or a great plan or anything else. And what I found is, as a result, things happen that I could have never imagined that are just stunning and beautiful and incredible. And when I'm present, it's the person who matters. And so at that point, there's no stratification of value, there's no hierarchy of importance. None of that. I can be talking to somebody who is incredibly well known in the world or someone who is not known at all, and someone who is struggling with psychosis. And I have some of those friends.
Mhm.
Um, could be a woman who's been recently trafficked or whatever. It's just who's the person in front of me. A lot of times it's my grandchild. So it's being present to the grandchild and
Mhm.
to the conversations that are going on. And sometimes it means I need to slip away. And that seizure disorder is it has some built-in mm, elements that require me to step away from chaos and disorder at times, just because it's a trigger. So, but again, I'm not even trying to weave any of that together to figure out a plan. It's a very fluid for me and very irresponsible.
Well, I have two trigger words, and you mentioned one of them, and that is try. I feel like try is the way of being uncommittal in saying that you are taking action or that you want something or that you're going to achieve something or you're going to commit to something. So, um, if try did slip out of my mouth, it was not in with the intention of saying that you are being grateful or that you're causing a difference or changing the world. But I would not use that word try. You are either being, as you said, and present is being. And then the second word is busy. That word is chaos and it has zero sense of priority in life. And so to give you an idea, Paul, somebody could make the mistake of saying you're busy. I would never do that. I would say you're productive. You are focused. You are a person of priority. You understand where your goals and your limitations are, and you do everything based on those priorities. So I bring up those two words because if I accidentally said the word try, I retract that.
Here's the deal. Everybody is changing the world moment by moment, whether they realize it or not. If
Right.
you make a choice to not be present, to run into fears, it's causing ripples. And
Mm-hmm.
and so it's the question then becomes, do you want to change the world for good,
Right.
for kindness, And here's where I've come to. Love is the most powerful force on the world, even though people think it's weak. And here's why it's so powerful. Same with kindness and care and compassion and consideration and patience and long suffering and self-control. Those things change the world. Other things like meanness, cattiness, gossip, not being a truth teller, those things actually don't change the world. They compound the problem and the evil that's in it. And so you can either add to the pile of crap or you can infect it with transformational change. And how do you do that? Is because love changes things. When I was, when I had done some horrible things and pretty much blew up my world 30 years ago, I because I carried defense mechanisms because of the way, some of the sexual abuse and trauma with my dad and stuff like that. He wasn't the abuser, but he was a very, what did they call it in the old days? Um, he was strongly disciplinarian. He was abusive disciplinarian. And so I carried them. And I had defense mechanisms against direct attacks. I had none against kindness. The only one I had was to run from it. And kindness and care and consideration and forgiveness. So I know that those are the strong places. And if I want to engage with the strong places, those are the places that I want to live. That's where I want to live.
Mm.
This other stuff, I want to let it go. I want to have nothing to do with things that are not of love's kind. And whatever it takes, I want it burned out of my life. And so that's sort of how I walk into my world.
When you said I'm not worried about trying to change the world, and I'm not worried, period.
Me either.
What you shared after that, it almost to me would mimic what Jesus would say.
That's where I got it. I got the staying present part from things like take no thought for tomorrow. It's got enough issues of its own. Encourage one another as long as it's about today. In the presence is fullness of joy. Fear not, I'm with you. That's all present tense language. So you're right. All of this is grounded in who I see God to be in Jesus. Yeah. Yeah.
So Genie comes to you and gives you three wishes, Paul. What three wishes do you have?
Number one, because it's just the smart thing to wish, is to have all the wishes that I want. And
That's a mic drop. I can't.
And then I don't have to deal with the limitations.
Right, exactly.
Um, man,
Isn't it funny if he said, "I wish you'd give me four wishes"? I go, "Okay, that's one. You got two more to go."
I know, I know, I know.
What's really bad, Paul, while you're thinking, is if I said you got one wish from a genie, and you say, "Well, I wish I could have had two." I go, "You're done."
Yeah, exactly. Um, I wish there was the way to alleviate the suffering of children fully and completely.
Mhm.
I wish that we knew how to love each other better. I wish that we weren't dominated by fear and shame,
Right.
right? Those aren't just wishes, those are desires of the heart. And
Yeah.
those are uh, that's the grief. As you become, I think, more whole, you begin to realize not only how evil has wound its way through your own heart and choices, but you see it more clearly in the world. And it begins, you see it in the ways that you treat people, and you become more sensitive and more sensitive. And at the same time, as you see it in the world, you become less judgmental because, we've all been so blind and we all act out of so much of our own damage and hurt. Hurt people, like they say.
Hmm.
And so, yeah. Um, and I wish we would see the beauty and the wonder that is actually all around us. Actually, we're embraced by it. And you and I, we get to travel and see things. I don't know if you've been down to Soweto or South Africa or in some of the slums or near the favelas in Brazil or the red light districts in the world where children are even trafficked. I mean, that just everybody was once a child, so who's actually being trafficked here? And who's engaged in doing the trafficking, and how hard must the heart have been, and how much damage must have taken place? And um, I think forgiveness would be very, very, very powerful in this world if we actually took the risk of letting things go, not keeping records of wrongs. Like God doesn't keep a record of wrongs. That's in the New Testament. And so, yeah, lots of things. I would like a lot of things to change in this world.
Well, I'm going to see if we can get all of them over to you, Paul.
Mhm. Yeah,
I'm working with my smile movement to address as many of those things you just said. So,
I know you are. And it's an honor to be with you, to learn from you. So thank you.
we're wrapping up the show at this point, and I guess a curiosity I have is, what is your big capstone? What is your goal for either 2025 or 2026? How can I or anybody support you with that?
To be kind. That's the real big goal. As far as personal production, I just sent the publisher a full manuscript for the sequel for The Shack.
Really?
Yeah, 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 yeah. So we don't know how the timing of that, and we've still got editing work to do and all that. That's fun. We're just working on a libretto with an American soprano for a big stage musical production of The Shack that will probably emerge out of Germany to begin with. And so we're just starting putting together a development fund for that. Um, got a little tiny podcast that my son Nicholas and I do like twice a week, 15 to 20 minutes. Simple. It's got no theme. It's got no sponsors. It's got no anything. And it's great. And it's just whatever happens to be in front of my mind in that moment or heart. And it's just called Paul Young Podcast. And that's
When you say it has no anything, I'm going to say it has kindness.
well, that's it. See? Yeah, 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 yeah. And
It's like kindness and joy.
we're back to the things that actually matter. Because whether a book happens or movies happen, all of those conversations are happening, but whether it actually happens, my identity is not in any of it. My identity is wrapped up in kindness. It is as an expression of who I am. And I think all of us were designed to be kind and we're created to be kind. And it's part of who we actually are. It's just been so bombarded and mutilated and harmed that we have lost touch with it. We're alienated from who we are.
There are two shirts I love. One is a shirt that just simply has "Be kind." It's just
Mhm.
it says it all. And then a friend of mine, she made a shirt. Whoever smiles first wins, and I love that one.
Those are great. Mine would say, trust the ripples.
Trust the ripples. That is good. Um, is there going to be a second movie? Do you anticipate a sequel?
Um, I know that there's conversations right now about Crossroads and Eve, two other novels I've written as far as major motion pictures. If, yeah, the sequel lends itself to a film. And so it's kind of been a little peripheral conversation.
Hmm?
Don't know yet. We don't know if we're going to hold off on the release of the sequel so that it has time for the international languages to get set up for it and then do something like a global release. Don't know that for sure yet, but it's part of the conversation. So there's always stuff, but if you die tomorrow, it kind of screws plans up anyway. And so, you know.
Well, I think the cast for The Shack was genius. I mean, you know when you watch it again and again, you're just seeing the character development of each
Oh,
one.
I know. I know. Yeah, they did such a good job, and I'm so grateful that they invited me continuously to participate in the whole unfolding of it. Um, it was so fun. I'm in it, actually, in a cameo, this
Yeah.
little tiny cameo. It's so great, and
Tell
you'd
me
have
what
to.
part. Since I've seen it so many times, tell me what part.
Oh, so they invited me. Lionsgate invites me on to the first day shoot and says, "Would you come and pray a blessing over the entire cast and crew?" Which is pretty good for a secular movie
Yes.
company.
Yeah.
And uh, and I said, "Absolutely." So I mean, I did that first thing in the morning, and then I got to hang around all day long. Near the end of the day, I Gil Netter yells out, "Hey, Paul, you want to be in a cameo?" And it caught me by surprise, and I'm like, "A cameo? You mean like?" In the movie a cameo? And he goes, yeah. He says, I've never shot a movie based on a book and the author was alive that I didn't put the author in it somewhere. I
That's
said, absolutely. What do I have to do? He said, oh, it's very simple. In the scene where they were shooting it the first day, even though it's not the first part of the movie, but um, it's in the neighborhood, and Mac and the kids are all piling their stuff. Missy talks about her insects and all this, and Nan is going to go do some teaching at continuing education that she's teaching for medical. So Willie walks over, and he's got a dog, and he's Mac's best friend. And by the way, Willie, Kim's dad, lived with us for 17 years. His name's Willard, but we all called him Willie. And the character I built around Willie in the book is Kim's dad. And so he walks over and they start this conversation back and forth. And if you look behind Willie, Tim McGraw, if you look behind Tim McGraw, at one point you'll see this kind of, middle-aged looking, a little bit overweight, white balding guy walk through the neighborhood with a book under his arm. And so they said, that's all you have to do. All you have to do is walk through. And I'm thinking like, I've walked most of my life. This can't be that hard. But then I realized, but I don't think about my walking. I just
right.
walk. And now
Right.
I'm thinking about it. And I think it took 5 takes. And could you do that, but a little bit slower? Don't look at the camera. And so, but like I tell people, if there was an Academy Award for walking, I think I nailed it. And so fun,
I'm
right?
so glad you did. I would really not enjoy this part of the show if you said they just never could get me to walk right. So I was actually not. It was the first author that was not a cameo of one of his.
Oh, let me tell you a little secret about the movie.
Yes.
And this would be a great way to end our conversation. At the end of the movie, there's a scene that is shot in the garden, and they
Yes.
built the garden. And so it's up on part of a hill, and they built the garden up there. And so there's, I don't know, a lot of people on set when they're shooting here in the garden. They had, camera people, electric people, plant people, the actors, everything. And then the scene at the end of the movie, it's going to be Father, Son, Holy Spirit with Mac in the middle. And all this one shot, all that they have to do is look down into the plot of ground that earlier Sarayu and Mackenzie tore up and is now um, the Holy Spirit, Sarayu, is going to pour out Mackenzie's tears
Mm.
related to Missy's loss, right? Because that beautiful place that Mac was stuck was all the things with regard to his daughter. And and from his tears will come up this tree of life. That's the setting, that's the context. So it's a simple shot. Father, Son, Holy Spirit looking down. Easy enough. So they roll camera, and at that very moment, and you watch it, you'll think it's special effects. It's not. This huge butterfly comes out of the woods and lands on Mackenzie's nose. Of all the people in the whole place. And you can't train a butterfly to come out of the woods and land on a specific person's nose.
Right.
But talk about just a touch of grace and humor
Mm.
that God has in that moment that a big butterfly would come and land. And in the shot, you see uh, Mackenzie, Sam, look surprised because he is surprised. And everybody stayed in character, and bam, that was the shot that they used in the movie. So when you see that butterfly land on his nose, it's for real.
That is amazing and not trained.
Oh, no, no, not on a leash, nothing.
Well, I do have I guess I have a habit of the five trivia questions I like to ask, which
Okay,
it's a quick out and in. We're done in like a minute or so.
okay.
So, and you've
By the way, I don't know what these are.
okay, and you've answered them before, but I wanted to see if
Oh, I don't remember.
here we go. So, what did you say 5 years ago? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Ah,
All right,
I have this seizure disorder. It's in my front left lobe
all
point.
right. Here we go. A book that changed your life, Paul.
George MacDonald's Unspoken Sermons.
A movie that inspires you.
One of them you mentioned already, and that's Shawshank. Another one is Babette's Feast, which is an older movie, but
I've heard of it.
it's incredible. Babette's Feast.
I have to read. Yes. Oh, yes. That is a beautiful movie. The
Mhm.
choreography and everything, amazing. Okay.
Yes, and the storyline.
Yes.
A Chocolat is another one.
I haven't heard that one. Okay, so we'll fit three in this sucker. All right,
Okay.
song that gets you going.
It's got to be from Bruce Cockburn, who is my favorite musical artist. It would be God, he's got 34 albums, so you're asking me to
Yes, he has a
pick
few.
something. Um,
I'm trying to remember which one I like the most.
no footprints. That would be a good one.
Okay,
Um,
okay, that's great. Okay, and then the final question, Paul, is what quote do you live by?
Trust the ripples.
Trust the ripples. That makes sense. Uh, how can people follow you, celebrate you, support?
Easiest is paulyoungpodcast.com.
We're
And yeah, that'll connect you. And if you want more stuff, I'm not a very good social media person. And I don't have a staff and I don't, all this stuff. And so if you can connect through some of the resources on the resource page that's connected to the podcast, and we're going to build it out more as we get help. But
well, if your related authors would like to be on a show, I'd love to have.
ah, wonderful.
And maybe you said your grandson or no, your son. Your son does a show with you. That's right.
Yeah, it helps on the podcast. That's great.
Very cool. Well, Paul, it's always a delight to hear your voice, see you, and just be inspired by your word, but more importantly, your presence. So thank you.
And honor, love you dearly. Big hugs.
Thank you. Just going to turn this off.